When we talk about material science, we have this fallacy that we are talking about a God's eye view of the world. And by God's eye view, what I mean is we're talking about the objective picture of how the material world works without our senses, without the mediation of our senses. And we accomplish this trick. We play this trick upon ourselves by reducing things to numbers, right? We say, well, they have this chart and table, this, a spike of serotonin here, a measurement of rainfall there, everything that we can write down in cold ones and zeros or cold numbers more generally, we imagine to have described in a way that bears no relationship to our conscious experience, which you might call the qualia of things, the qualitative way that the outside world affects our inner life and our experience. And yet, one of the seminal findings of science in the last 100 years has been precisely that this is an illusion. This idea that we're getting a God's eye view, a third-person objective view of the outside world when we measure things, when we chart patterns and identify forces, material forces in the world, automatic forces in the world. That idea turns out to be false, or at least highly oversimplified, because what happens when you look away from something, when there is no observer? It turns out, as Kant could have told you before the quantum physicists told you, right? It turns out we have no clue, because of course, everything that we do, even when we measure things, even when we, observe patterns in them and learn how to manipulate matter more effectively, everything refers to some human experience ultimately that we are having of the world. Even when we get down to particles, right? We think that by getting down very small, we can avoid this and, find some objectivity in quarks and subatomic particles, right? And bosons and all this stuff. And yet those two refer only and everywhere to experiences that some human has had of some measuring device that is affected by some outside thing. Going, again, kind of crib noting Kant here, there is an outside world. Don't mistake me to be saying that the outside world is purely what our consciousness makes of it. There is an outside world. We can't just will it into total rearrangement. And it will behave in certain ways, irrespective of our desires or involvement with it. However, when we start to say that the outside world looks like or is like this or that, absent our perception, we have fallen into an error. We have words like look like don't mean anything when you're talking about something that is unobserved, things that happened before the existence of human consciousness, things that happen outside the realm of human consciousness and experience. And this is the quantum physics paradox or the difficulty of things like the wave function in light, right? For light and for particles. That when you say of something that, is it a particle or a wave? Well, it's both and neither until observed. What you basically mean is that you only know how to describe or experience it when you're observing it, when the outside world is having some effect upon you. Why is this related to poetic diction? Because similarly, right, there is no, if words have a meaning that goes beyond any encapsulation in matter, if a tree is some form that is far beyond our physical experience of the tree, then we have never had a direct face-to-face encounter with that formal tree, right? All we've ever had is a sensory encounter with how that outside thing affects us. And Barfield's argument here is that's all of human life and experience. We always do that. We always have an encounter with the outside world that affects us in certain sensory ways. And that is how they come to us, is mediated through the senses. And our use of language, Barfield is arguing in this passage, is our way of formalizing and finalizing that relationship that we have with the outside world. Once we've given a name to something, then we have crystallized it in our minds and in our experience into the thing that it was made to be, which is a thing in relationship with a consciousness, with a conscious mind, ultimately with God's conscious mind. And this is why we refer to the view of things in their objective state as the God's eye view, because even in the sort of final analysis of what things are, there's some consciousness that is observing them and bringing them into being according to the scriptural account, right? That God speaks and there is light and he sees and it is good. The seeing is really important here, right?